19 days. That's how long their black Jeep blocked my ranch gate. 19 mornings of exhaust fumes in my driveway radios crackling with fake authority and 3 men in knockoff uniforms pretending to be law enforcement. But on the 19th morning, instead of calling the sheriff, I pressed a red button and turned their Jeep into a 4-foot cube of scrap metal. People call that destruction. I call it applied physics. My name's Edward Thornton. I'm 78 years old, retired mechanical engineer from Boeing, and the last surviving member of my family still living on the ranch we've owned for 150 years. Every fence post, every oak tree, every stretch of iron gate my great-grandfather built it with his own hands. That land isn't just property. It's legacy, blood, and history. So, when a woman named Margaret Harrison moved in 3 months ago and started waving around HOA paperwork like she was the Queen of Texas, I didn't think much of it. She was polished blonde hair, sharp suit, expensive perfume, and the kind of smile that looked rehearsed. She showed up at my porch with a clipboard full of regulations and said, "Mr. Thornton, we're just trying to maintain aesthetic standards. Your gate, your mailbox, even your oak trees, they're all out of alignment with community expectations." I remember staring at her like she'd lost her mind. "Ma'am," I said, "this ranch predates your so-called community by about a century. My great-grandfather built this place in 1875. You can take your expectations and leave them at the property line." That was the last polite conversation we ever had. A week later, the notices started showing up. Official-looking letters with fake seals citing covenant violations for paint-color fence height, mailbox design nonsense that didn't even apply to me. I ignored them. Then came the threats of fines, then liens, and finally the goons. 3 men in black uniforms with shiny plastic badges who parked a Jeep right across my gate every morning at 7:30. They'd lean against their doors, read the newspaper, smoke cigarettes, and talk into walkie-talkies like children playing cops. They blocked deliveries, scared off visitors, even made my elderly neighbor Dorothy miss her oxygen delivery because the medical truck couldn't get through. For 12 straight days, that Jeep sat there 2 feet and 3 inches past the property line. I measured it myself. I cataloged every detail, tire depth, arrival times, license plates, even the direction of the morning sun. Because if you're going to fight bullies, you better have the evidence to crush them later. Still, I tried the legal route. My grandson, Jake, he's a lawyer down in Austin, offered to file trespassing charges. The sheriff sympathized, but said his hands were tied because of jurisdiction issues with the HOA. Civil matter, he called it. Civil, my ass. By day 12, I'd had enough of civility. What Margaret didn't know was that behind my barn door sat a machine I'd brought home from Boeing's surplus program years ago, a 20-ton hydraulic press. She saw an old man with arthritis and shaky hands. I saw a problem that required a mechanical solution. Every evening after the Jeep left, I'd walk outside with my notebook and measure their tracks. Always the same spot, same depth, same arrogance. And each night as I stared at those ruts in my dirt, an idea began to take shape. If they wanted to test boundaries, I'd show them what real boundaries looked like defined in steel and pressure. On the 13th morning, Margaret showed up herself. She strutted up my drive with that clipboard and said, "Mr. Thornton, the HOA has voted to expand our security presence to ensure compliance." Compliance. I repeated like it was a foreign word. "Is that what you call blocking a man's driveway?" Her professional smile cracked for half a second. Then she said, "I'm trying to help you understand that property values depend on everyone following the same rules. Your gate is a problem, but I'm prepared to make you a very generous offer for your land. Enough to buy something nice in a retirement community." There it was, the truth, finally laid out. And if I'm not interested, I asked, then I'm afraid the compliance issues will continue to escalate. That's when I understood it wasn't about my gate or my mailbox. It was about money. She wanted this land for development, probably a shopping center or some cookie-cutter subdivision. When she drove away, I didn't go back inside. I went straight to my barn and pulled the tarp off the hydraulic press. I ran my hand along the cold steel and whispered, "Let's see what you've got left in you, old friend." But fate had something bigger planned. That same afternoon, I got a letter from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I'd written them 3 days earlier after finding an old survey map among my late wife Mina's papers. The letter confirmed what I'd suspected. Part of my property contained Native American burial grounds from the Caddo Nation dating back to the 1840s. That meant my ranch wasn't just old, it was federally protected sacred ground. Any attempt to develop it was a federal crime. When Jake called later that night, he sounded like he'd just won the lottery. Grandpa, guess who's behind Margaret Harrison's HOA, a shell company called Harrison Development Group. They filed plans for a casino 6 months ago, right on your land. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Well, Jake, I said, looks like we're about to teach them the difference between fake authority and federal law. Over the next few days, I worked quietly. Installed motion sensors, recalibrated the hydraulic system, buried lines underground. I wasn't planning revenge, I was preparing a demonstration. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't have doubts. One night, sitting at my kitchen table, I caught myself staring at the schematics, thinking, am I really about to use a 20-ton press to solve a neighborhood dispute? I looked at my wife's photo on the wall and whispered, Mina, tell me I'm not crazy. The wind outside rattled the windows, and somehow it felt like an answer. She'd always said I over-engineered everything. Maybe this time it was exactly what the situation required. By day 17, the tension hit a breaking point. Margaret filed emergency zoning requests with the county claiming my ranch posed a security threat and accusing me of anti-government behavior. Fake news crews showed up. Her hired guards multiplied from 3 to 8, some armed, all looking nervous but obedient. They thought they were closing in, but I'd already sent copies of every document, photo, and letter to Jake and to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Federal agents were watching. They just needed proof of intent. So I gave them the perfect show. The next morning, vans from Channel 7 News parked along the road. I opened my door to find a reporter asking Mr. Thornton, "Is it true your land contains Native American burial sites?" "That's right," I said. "And it's also true that these people have been trespassing on federally protected ground for over 2 weeks. Then she asked, "Is it true you've made threats involving applied physics?" I smiled. "Ma'am, physics isn't a threat. It's a solution." By dawn the following day, the scene looked like something out of a movie. Federal marshals were on site, news crews lined the road, neighbors crowded along the fence. And right on schedule at 7:30 sharp, the black Jeep rolled up and parked across my gate again. Rick Davidson, the driver, looked confident until he saw me step out with a clipboard in one hand and a small red button in the other. "Sir," I said loud enough for the cameras to hear, "you're trespassing on federally protected property. You have 30 seconds to move your vehicle." He stared back, unsure if I was serious. Margaret screamed from behind him, "Don't you dare move! He's bluffing." I wasn't bluffing. 10 seconds, I said. The crowd went dead silent. 5 seconds. Then I pressed the button. A low, mechanical hum rose from beneath the dirt. Steel plates emerged around the Jeep like jaws of some giant machine coming alive. The men inside scrambled out, stumbling backward as the plates clamped down. The first sound was the pop of the tires, then the groan of metal bending under force it was never meant to endure. 12 seconds later, the machine powered down, leaving behind a perfect cube of compressed steel, 4 feet by 4 feet, still steaming in the morning air. You could have heard a pin drop. Then someone started clapping. Within seconds, 500 people were cheering like they'd just watched justice itself take physical form. Margaret's face turned white. She screamed, "That's destruction of property. That's terrorism." The lead federal marshal, Agent Collins, stepped forward. "Ma'am, Mr. Thornton is within his legal rights to remove trespassing vehicles from his property using reasonable force. Considering you ignored 18 days of warnings, I'd say this qualifies as reasonable." Margaret tried to protest, but her words drowned in the sound of news cameras clicking. Rick just stood there staring at the cube, whispering, "That was my car. That I told him was a trespassing vehicle. Now it's recycled material." The rest unfolded fast. Federal agents arrested Harrison and her fake security team within the hour. Turns out her HOA was just a front for land fraud and casino development. Rick flipped on her immediately, confessing to impersonating officers and blocking driveways for cash. As they loaded her into the back of a federal SUV, a reporter asked Mrs. Harrison, "Do you have any comment on today's events?" Her voice cracked. "I just needed the money." My ex took everything. I didn't know about the burial sites. Agent Collins closed the door without a word. That's where it ended. The Jeep was gone, the gate was clear, and the air finally felt like my own again. For the first time in 19 days, I could walk my land without seeing those fake badges or hearing that engine idle at my fence line. I didn't celebrate. I just walked to my wife's grave and placed my hand on the headstone. "It's over, Mina," I said quietly. "The land's safe. The ancestors are safe." Sometimes justice doesn't come from the courts or the cops. Sometimes it comes from understanding the laws of nature and having the resolve to apply them. Because physics doesn't negotiate.